My name's Jessica Gannaway. I'm a lecturer and a researcher at the University of Melbourne, up in Australia. I'm here with the Stanley Knowles visiting professorship, and I'm really excited to be learning a lot from the Brandon University community. For a long time, a lot of the conversations that I've learned a lot from around decolonising education have come from Canada. Even when I was a very young teacher, I was learning about the work of Batiste and Kirkness and their voices in decolonising education in relation to Indigenous academics back home, like Milton Robinson and Martin. So Canada has always been a source of learning from Canadian scholars and educators, and I look forward to being in continued conversation with both BU scholars here, educators here, about the commonalities between them. So as I said, I've learned a lot from Canadian scholars and educators over many years of my practice as both an educator and researcher. In Australia currently, we're really grappling with truth-telling in education. So we're looking at, we've just had our first truth-telling commission, our first formal truth-telling commission in Australia. Here in Canada, your Truth and Reconciliation Commission concluded in 2015. So educators here have had a good 10 years to be thinking about how to engage in truth-telling in the education system, how to do that work well. So I think there's a lot of conversation that I can be learning from, that I can hear about what that practice looks like here in Canada, and a lot of exchange that can be done between our societies. So my work draws on a lot of different critical and creative pedagogies, whether that's engaging in truth-telling in our classrooms, drawing on really strong relational practices in our pedagogies, even textile practices that can open up different conversations and position students as co-constructors of knowledge. With students, I'd really like to be part of conversations that help them to understand themselves as co-creators of knowledge. With faculty, I hope to be part of an exchange around how we can do things like weave Indigenous knowledges across the curriculum, how we can engage in anti-racist practices in our teaching. Obviously I've foregrounded the work of truth-telling and the importance of that in both of our societies. So I think those are big conversations that we can be having during this visit here. And also, across BU more widely, there's a lot of exchange that can happen around how we understand curriculum. We can develop curriculum that's deeply intellectually stimulating, but also deeply human, and kind of the role of the relational and how we engage with curriculum and pedagogy. I began my teaching practice in quite a small community in the north of Australia. And everything that I'd learned about pedagogy in my teaching degree made me think that I could kind of construct a pedagogy and then bring it to a close. And I quickly learned in that community that pedagogy arises from place, knowledge arises from place. And so one of the things that I always find really beneficial in being in conversation with international colleagues is learning more about what site-specific learning looks like. And I'm really interested to learn about BU, about Brandon, about what knowledges arise from this place and what context-specific pedagogies look like here. So I think that's a big conversation we can have together. When I think of Stanley Knowles, I think about power. I think about understanding how power works, being really smart about understanding the structures that maintain power. I think of Stanley Knowles' work and kind of using his power in order to enact change that benefits the many, not the few. And I think that's a really important conversation in my field of education, that teachers become really smart about how they have power, how they can enact that power, how they can enact change through the power that they have. So that means understanding the structures that we're part of. That means understanding the potential of our collective power as a profession. And also means getting really clued into the relational power that we have both in our classrooms and our school communities. So already, this is week 2 of my visit here, but already I've really benefited from the generosity of colleagues here at BU, sharing about our different fields, whether that's health, whether that's psychology, whether that's education, politics, and hearing about some of the common struggles that our two countries face within those fields. A lot of my current work focuses on discomfort, on the kind of uncomfortable conversations we have to have within our fields, and the scope for discomfort to be a vehicle for change. And I'm finding that that's a conversation that connects across disciplines, that there's a lot of scope for collaborating on how we think about discomfort and how we can use that productively in our work.